The massive holographic screen flickered to life, casting a pale blue light across Captain Hyun Park's angular face. He stood perfectly still, his dark eyes narrowing as the Galactic Council's representatives materialized before him. Their various alien forms, some tentacled, some crystalline, some vaguely humanoid, seemed to vibrate with barely contained amusement. "Captain Park," announced the lead counselor, a gelatinous being whose translucent body rippled with suppressed laughter, "you have been designated as the primary inheritor of Princess Yoon Kim of the Krell Imperium." A wave of snickers erupted across the interstellar communication network. Diplomatic channels typically hummed with serious discussions, but today, they buzzed with unrestrained mockery. None understood why. The Krell Imperium was known for its complex royal inheritance laws, and inheriting a princess was rarely a straightforward matter. Princess Yoon Kim was not considered conventionally attractive by galactic standards. Her species, the Krell, had unique biological characteristics that most other civilizations found unusual. Her skin had an odd metallic sheen, her eyes were slightly too large, and her movements seemed slightly mechanical. The galactic rumor mills had long painted her as the least desirable royal in known space. Hyun remained calm. As a human captain who had risen through the ranks of the Interstellar Exploration Corps, he had learned that appearances could be deeply misleading. Something about this inheritance felt different, more significant than a simple diplomatic joke. "The inheritance includes not just the princess," continued the counselor, struggling to maintain a professional tone, "but also territorial rights to 3 partially explored star systems in the Outer Rim. The legal documentation is quite complex." A data packet materialized beside the holographic transmission. Thousands of pages of legal text, written in multiple alien languages and encrypted with layers of diplomatic protocols, began scrolling rapidly. Hyun's neural interface began processing the information. Most beings would have been overwhelmed, but his specialized training allowed him to absorb and analyze complex information quickly. As the documents unfolded, he noticed something peculiar: hidden clauses, intricate legal language that seemed designed to be overlooked. The Galactic Council continued their performance of ridicule. Representatives from various star systems were literally rolling with laughter, their bizarre physiologies allowing for expressions of humor that humans would find incomprehensible. They saw this as the ultimate practical joke, a human captain stuck with an unwanted royal inheritance. What they didn't know was that Hyun Park was not an ordinary human captain. His reputation in the Exploration Corps was built on solving impossible problems and seeing opportunities where others saw obstacles. As the laughter continued, Hyun's hand moved almost imperceptibly, activating a sophisticated data analysis algorithm. The legal documents began to reorganize themselves, revealing layers of information that were not immediately apparent. 3 star systems. Significant territorial rights. An apparently undesirable princess. And an inheritance mechanism so complex that it had made the entire Galactic Council believe this was nothing more than an elaborate joke. Hyun felt something close to excitement building within him. This was not a burden. This was an opportunity. The transmission began to wind down. The alien representatives were still chuckling, their mockery showing no signs of abating. They believed they had witnessed a perfect diplomatic humiliation. But Captain Hyun Park was smiling, just slightly, at the corners of his mouth. A smile that suggested he knew something they did not. As the holographic transmission flickered and began to dissolve, Hyun made a mental note. First, he would need to meet Princess Yoon Kim. Then, he would need to understand exactly what hidden details were buried within these complex inheritance documents. The Galactic Council might be laughing now. But something told Hyun that their laughter would not last long. The transport shuttle's interior was sterile and cold, much like the diplomatic protocols that had brought Hyun and Princess Yoon together. She sat across from him, her metallic skin catching the harsh artificial light, creating strange reflections that seemed to dance around the small compartment. "Most people find me difficult to look at," Yoon said matter-of-factly, her large eyes fixed directly on Hyun. Her voice was smooth, almost calculated in its precision. Hyun simply nodded. "Appearances can be misleading," he responded, his tone neutral but curious. She pulled out a small data crystal, its surface shifting with complex holographic patterns. What do you know about the outer rim star systems in our inheritance? Her question was direct, carrying an undercurrent of something more than simple curiosity. The shuttle's navigation system hummed quietly, passing through the vast emptiness of space. Hyun recognized that this moment was more than a casual conversation. Something significant was about to be revealed. Princess Yoon began explaining. The 3 star systems were not random territorial assignments. They were strategically positioned at critical galactic crossroads. Each system contained unique mineral resources and gravitational anomalies that could potentially revolutionize interstellar travel and energy production. The Galactic Council believes this is a joke, she said, a hint of something close to amusement in her mechanical voice. They see an unattractive princess and a human captain and assume we are incompetent. Hyun studied her. Her movements were precise, her speech carefully constructed. Nothing about her suggested weakness or incompetence. Instead, she radiated a calculated intelligence that seemed to pulse beneath her unusual exterior. She activated the data crystal. Complex star charts, economic projections, and military strategic maps began to unfold. Each layer revealed more complexity, more hidden potential. These were not just random star systems. They were a carefully constructed puzzle, waiting to be understood. My people have been watching a developing threat, Yoon continued. A coalition of civilizations is preparing something massive. But no one has noticed because they're too busy laughing at me. Her large eyes locked with Hyun's. In that moment, he understood. She had been deliberately presenting herself as non-threatening. The galactic rumors about her unattractiveness, her seemingly awkward diplomatic position, all of it was a carefully constructed illusion. The shuttle passed near a distant nebula, its colorful gases creating a stunning backdrop to their intense conversation. Han realized that their inheritance was not a joke. It was a carefully laid trap, and they were the only ones who could spring it. What do you need from me? Hyun asked, his voice steady and professional. Yoon's metallic skin seemed to shimmer. Your human adaptability. Your ability to think beyond traditional strategies. And most importantly, your willingness to look beyond surface appearances. She began outlining a complex plan. Military movements, economic manipulations, diplomatic negotiations, all intricately connected. Each element was designed to expose and neutralize the developing threat that no other civilization had detected. The shuttle's navigation computer beeped softly, indicating they were approaching their destination. But Hyun knew their real journey was just beginning. Princess Yoon was not a burden. She was a weapon. A carefully designed, highly intelligent strategic asset that the entire galaxy had dramatically underestimated. And now, they would learn the true meaning of their unexpected inheritance. As the shuttle prepared to dock, Hyun felt a sense of anticipation. The Galactic Council thought this was a joke. They were about to discover how serious this inheritance truly was. The game was just getting started. The research station hung in space like a fragile glass bubble, surrounded by the infinite darkness. Inside, Hyun and Yoon worked side by side, their movements synchronized despite their different backgrounds. Star charts, data streams, and holographic projections filled the room, creating a complex web of information. Here, Yoon pointed, her metallic finger tracing a seemingly insignificant cluster of star systems. Most analysts would ignore these. But watch. She activated a complex algorithm. The clusters began to pulse, revealing hidden connection points that no standard navigation system could detect. Han watched, his human intuition combining with her precise calculations. The threat they were tracking was not a traditional military invasion. It was something more insidious, a coordinated economic and communication disruption that could collapse entire galactic trade networks. Small actions, carefully placed, could create massive systemic failures. They're not trying to conquer, Hyun muttered, they're trying to destabilize. Yoon nodded. Her large eyes reflected the dancing holographic data, making her look almost alive with strategic potential. Exactly. Conventional military analysis would miss this completely. Their alliance was unusual. A human captain and a Krell princess, both considered outsiders by their respective societies. But here, in this moment, they were something more. They were problem solvers. The research station's communication system suddenly pinged. An encrypted message arrived, its origin carefully masked. Yoon's fingers moved with lightning speed, breaking through layers of communication encryption that would have taken standard teams weeks to decode. "Preliminary movement detected," she said. "The first phase of their disruption is about to begin." Hyun understood immediately. They weren't just analyzing a threat, they were preparing to prevent it. Their inheritance was more than territorial rights. It was a strategic position that allowed them to see what others could not. Their plan was elegant in its simplicity. By carefully manipulating communication channels and introducing subtle economic counter-pressures, they could expose the developing threat without alerting its architects. Each move was calculated, each action precise. The Galactic Council continued to laugh. They saw a human captain and an unattractive princess. They did not see the strategic minds working to protect multiple civilizations. Hours turned into days. Data flowed, strategies were refined. Hyun's human creativity combined with Yoon's systematic approach created something entirely new. They were not just defending, they were preparing a complex, multi-layered response. "They will not expect this," Yoon said, her mechanical voice carrying a hint of what might have been excitement. "Humans are known for direct confrontation. Krell for rigid strategic planning. We are something else entirely." As the first signs of the impending disruption began to show, Hyun and Yoon were already 3 steps ahead. Communication networks were subtly adjusted. Economic pathways were prepared for redirection. Military resources were strategically positioned without appearing threatening. The research station became their fortress of strategy. No traditional diplomatic channel could see what they were preparing. No standard military analysis could detect their movements. Outside, space remained silent. But inside their small station, a complex dance of protection and prevention was being choreographed. 2 outsiders, deemed unimportant by the Galactic Council, were about to change everything. The threat was coming. But Hyun and Yoon were ready. And the galaxy had no idea what was about to hit it. The first wave of attacks came silently, like a digital whisper spreading across galactic communication networks. Entire planetary systems suddenly found their trade routes disrupted, communication channels fragmenting, and economic systems beginning to destabilize. Hyun watched the initial patterns emerge on the holographic displays. Yoon's metallic fingers were already moving, counteracting each strategic disruption with precision that seemed almost supernatural. Where most would see chaos, they saw a complex puzzle waiting to be solved. "They're using cascade failure algorithms," Yoon observed, her large eyes reflecting multiple data streams. "Designed to create maximum confusion with minimal direct intervention." Hyun understood immediately. This wasn't a traditional invasion. It was a systematic breakdown of galactic infrastructure, targeting the weakest points in complex interconnected systems. Their preparation became their greatest weapon. While other civilizations were scrambling to understand the attacks, Hyun and Yoon had already mapped out potential response strategies. Each communication channel they had subtly prepared now became a defensive line. Planetary governors began receiving coded transmissions. Economic stabilization protocols activated in systems that seemed random but were carefully predetermined. The attackers' sophisticated algorithms suddenly encountered unexpected resistance. "They didn't account for human unpredictability," Hyun said, a slight smile crossing his face. "And Krell's strategic depth. The attack was designed to look like multiple independent failures." But Hyun and Yoon saw the underlying pattern, a complex network of synchronized disruptions meant to create total systemic collapse. Alien fleet movements began to appear at the edge of sensor ranges. But these were not traditional military formations. They were support structures, designed to capitalize on the economic and communication breakdowns they had initiated. Yoon activated a series of quantum communication relays they had secretly prepared. Suddenly, the attackers' sophisticated encryption began to unravel. Their hidden communication channels became visible, their strategic movements exposed. Now, she said simply. None understood. Their response was not about direct confrontation. It was about revealing, exposing, and ultimately neutralizing the threat through precise, calculated interventions. Galactic communication networks that were moments away from total collapse suddenly stabilized. Economic pathways that seemed about to fragment found unexpected support. The attackers' carefully constructed plan began to crumble. The Galactic Council, which had been watching the initial disruptions with growing panic, suddenly realized something was different. The attacks were being countered with a sophistication that defied traditional military and diplomatic responses. Who is doing this? A council member demanded, watching the complex defensive maneuvers. No one had an immediate answer. The response was too coordinated, too precise to be a standard defensive action. Hyun and Yoon worked in perfect synchronization. Her systematic approach combined with his adaptive human thinking created a defensive strategy that was both elegant and devastating. They weren't just stopping the attack, they were using the attack's own momentum against it. Planetary systems that moments ago were on the brink of total communication and economic collapse now found themselves recovering. The attackers' carefully constructed plan was being dismantled piece by piece. They will realize we've identified their strategy, Yoon said, her mechanical voice carrying a hint of what might have been satisfaction. Hyun nodded. The confrontation was more than a battle. It was a complex strategic dance, with entire civilizations as the potential casualties. As the final layers of the attack were exposed and neutralized, something became clear. This was not just a defensive action. It was a message. A warning to those who would attempt such a complex galactic disruption. The research station continued to pulse with activity. Outside, space remained silent. But everything had changed. The attack was over. And Hyun and Yoon had won. The Galactic Council chamber was silent. Holographic displays flickered with detailed analysis of the recent events, showing how a human captain and a Krell princess had single-handedly prevented a massive systemic collapse that would have destroyed multiple civilizations. Hyun and Yoon stood at the center of the chamber, their postures calm and composed. The same representatives who had laughed at their inheritance now looked at them with a mixture of shock and reluctant admiration. Your strategic intervention, the lead counselor stuttered, was unprecedented. Yoon's metallic skin caught the light, making her look almost regal. Her large eyes scanned the chamber, no longer trying to appear unremarkable. Now, she radiated a quiet, powerful intelligence that demanded respect. The detailed reports told a stunning story. Their carefully prepared communication networks, economic pathways, and strategic interventions had not just stopped the attack, they had completely exposed the complex conspiracy behind it. Multiple alien civilizations were now under investigation. The attack that was meant to destabilize the galactic infrastructure had been turned into a mechanism for revealing hidden threats. Each disruption they had attempted became evidence of their broader manipulative strategies. Hyun noticed how the council members struggled with this new reality. They had seen a human captain and a princess they considered unattractive. They had expected a joke. Instead, they received a masterclass in strategic defense. We want to understand your methodology, another council member requested, their tentacles moving nervously. Yoon stepped forward. Our differences were our strength, she explained. Human adaptability. Krell strategic thinking. Combined, we saw what others could not. The holographic displays continued to show their complex defensive maneuvers. Each action, each intervention was now being studied as a potential new approach to galactic security. The three-star systems they had inherited were no longer seen as a diplomatic joke. They were now recognized as strategically critical territories that had been the key to preventing a massive galactic threat. Han watched the proceedings, understanding that this was more than a simple vindication. This was a fundamental shift in how galactic cooperation might work in the future. The mockery that had followed their initial inheritance had transformed into something else. Respect. Curiosity. A recognition that traditional diplomatic and military thinking might no longer be sufficient. We request formal recognition, Yoon stated, her mechanical voice carrying a tone of quiet confidence. The council members exchanged glances. They were witnessing something unprecedented, a complete reversal of their initial expectations. Outside the chamber, news was spreading. The story of the human captain and the Krell princess was becoming a legend. A tale of how two individuals considered outsiders had saved multiple civilizations. Han felt Yoon's presence beside him. Their unexpected alliance had become something more. A partnership that had changed the entire galactic landscape. The lead counselor cleared their throat. Your actions require extensive documentation, they said, which was as close to an apology as the Galactic Council ever came. Yoon's large eyes met Hyun's. No words were needed. They both understood what they had accomplished. The inheritance that was meant to be a joke had become their greatest opportunity. The princess no one wanted. The human captain everyone underestimated. They had turned everything on its head. As the council continued their proceedings, one thing became clear. The galaxy would never be the same again. Hyun and Yoon had won more than a battle. They had won the right to be taken seriously. And their story was just beginning.